Well, hey there. How you doing? Welcome to the Kim Constable podcast. Nobody cares. Work harder. I'm actually remembering to say my little catchphrase. I only remembered about it last week because I haven't recorded this podcast in like 18 months. But you guys are all telling me how much you are enjoying listening to the podcast. And I have to be honest, I am super enjoying recording the podcast. So it's a win-win for everybody, I have to say. So before we get into this week's content, I just want to say thank you so much for all of your reviews that you have been leaving on the podcast. For those of you who don't know, you can leave a review anywhere you listen to this podcast and you will go into a monthly draw to win any sculpted vegan program of your choice. All you have to do is leave a review and then we will go through the reviews and choose one of them. If you really want extra brownie points, you can send me a copy of the review on Instagram, or better still, actually send it into support@thesculptedvegan.com. They will save all the reviews and then at the end of the month they will do a draw and they will choose someone to win a sculpted vegan program of your choice. And it's a really great way to get a free program for doing very little, and also helps to boost our ratings on Apple and Spotify and anywhere else where you listen to the podcast. Second thing I want to say before we begin is that we are hosting, or I am hosting, should I say, a free challenge. It's starting on Monday, the 4th of September, 2023. So if you're listening to this podcast after that, sorry, you're too late. But if you're not and you're listening to it before then we are hosting a free challenge. It is the 5-day fitness, mindset and motivation challenge. I am basically going to teach you how you can stick to a fitness program. I'm going to give you all of the tips and strategies that I have used over the years to not only build a wildly successful online business, but to build a wildly successful body, stand on stage, continue to cultivate discipline and motivation, which is something that many of you are lacking. I'm going to give you some real strategies. I'm going to really give you some juicy content. And I'm going to go live twice a day and I'm going to be teaching. So if you love these podcasts, even if you are pretty disciplined and you love, showing up for yourself and you love your fitness programs, I'm going to be teaching every day at midday UK time. And also I'm going to be going live at 4 p.m. and doing a live Q&A every single day for 5 days. So you get 10 sessions over 5 days of pure unadulterated Kim. And I know you guys love listening to me teach. So please do consider joining the challenge. Go to thesculptedvegan.com. Just click on the banner and it will on the website and it will take you through to sign up for the challenge completely free. No obligation to purchase anything, nothing for sale. It's all for free. I have not done a challenge in let me think. The last 5-day challenge I think I did was in 2020. So 3 years, haven't done a challenge. This is the first, hopefully, of many, because I do love running the challenges. And hopefully you're going to show up for yourself for 5 days. And even if you get nothing else out of it, we're going to hang out together for 5 days and it's going to be fun. So let's get into the content today. I actually just realized I don't even have a title for this episode. I have written down here in the notes that I had written for today, why do we not stick to our goals? So I'm going to come up with a really good title for this for the show notes, and also to put the podcast out whenever it goes out. But why do we not stick to our goals? The reason why I wanted to record this episode, I guess, specifically was we did a poll in the fitness mindset motivation group, which now has 23,000 members. This is a very, very popular challenge. We did a poll in that group recently and we just asked, why are you not sticking to your fitness goals? It was just to give us some information about what people are struggling with. So it was why are, what has stopped you from completing, one of our fitness challenges in the past, for example. And we gave lots of different examples of, is it the food plan? Is it, life's challenges? Is it cardio? What is it? And there were loads and loads and loads of people who answered. But it was funny. I was reading through the comments and I kept seeing the same comment coming up again and again and again and again. And what the comments said was, or the ones that particularly caught my eye, were people who said, I find it really hard to eat the same thing every day for 6 days. And someone else said, I just find the food really boring. And, there was loads of different comments about the food being boring and, them having to eat the same thing every single day. And honestly, my first reaction when I read it was, really? Are you really that is the thing that stops you? Food being boring is the thing that stops you from completing the program? And I have to be honest, I did have a little bit of judgment of these people. Well, I wouldn't even say judgment. It was more, I was a little incredulous. I was like, really? Because whenever I thought back to, whenever I've been dieting, Genuinely, I love eating the same thing every day. And it's not that I love eating the same thing every day, but food to me is fuel. And I really do eat the same thing every single day. Now, I have a private chef who cooks for us. So yes, we are eating a variation of different things. You know, he obviously makes me lovely things for lunch and whatever, but it's usually just salad. It's some kind of seitan meat usually, because seitan is high in protein, low in fat and carbs, with some kind of salads and beans and whatever for lunch. And then honestly, for dinner, I just want seitan and vegetables. And usually when it comes to meal times, I am so bloody hungry that anything you put in front of me, I am going to devour. And so it never bothered me eating the same thing every single day. I remember my first ever prep that I didn't know about seitan at the time, so I was only eating tofu. I was eating a tofu scramble, right? Which was basically just tofu scrambled with garlic oil and tamari, with lots of different sauteed vegetables mixed in with it, just usually broccoli and sometimes asparagus, sometimes peas. And I would literally eat tofu and green vegetables with some nutritional yeast sprinkled over it for lunch and dinner every day. And I did that for 14 weeks. I'm not even kidding. I ate the same thing for lunch and dinner every day for 14 weeks. And I didn't care one single bit. There wasn't one time that I sat down at my meal and thought, oh my God, I wish I could have something different. And so whenever I read these comments about these women saying this in the group, I genuinely was confused. But whenever I become confused over something or I can't understand someone's point of view, I make it my mission to understand them. I make it my mission to try them on and try and understand their point of view, because it helps me the more I can understand my customers, the better I can serve them. And so I really sat down and I thought, what would cause these people to find food boring? Why would that be the reason that they don't stick to a fitness program? Because the reason people say they don't stick to a fitness program, or the reason they give for not achieving their goals, actually is very, very rarely the actual reason. It's usually something else. That reason is usually some kind of representation of something else, or it's the effect of something else. Because really, if someone places their personal preferences, which is essentially just feeling good in the moment over achieving a longer term goal, they're never going to amount to anything successful. Because whenever you say, I don't like eating the same food every day, what you're basically saying is, feeling good in the moment is more important to me than achieving a long-term goal. That's really what you're saying. There's no other, there's no other reason why someone would place feeling good in the moment and having their personal preferences satisfied over the satisfaction of achieving a longer term goal, unless they were just very, very caught up in the moment, very satiative, if you like. But I think that us being super satiative to our desires is one of the main reasons why the human race is in such a diabolical state, because we're not willing to overcome what we want most for what we want more. We're not able to overcome what we want in the moment for something in the future. And that is really what it takes to stick to a fitness program and achieve your goals. And so I just thought, I'm going to make this episode today about this, and I'm really going to break this down. And if you're one of these people who's like, oh yes, Kim, this is absolutely me. Like, I get bored of the food. I get bored of eating the same thing every day. And I just want, I just want something to be different, then this episode is for you. If you've ever struggled with the meal planning, if you've ever struggled with eating the same thing every day, if that is the reason why you haven't achieved your fitness goal, then you are going to love what we're going to cover today. So let's dive into why we do this. Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you a story about me, of course, because this is what I started to think about. Whenever I was really thinking about the episode, I thought, okay, where have I done this? And this is a really good tip for you, by the way, for anybody here. Whenever you feel that you can't understand somebody's motivation for something, what you should always do in order to be able to understand them and to be a more empathetic and caring human being, which is really what it's all about, this whole, being a human being thing, is what you should try and do is try and think of an area of your life where you have done the same thing, even if it's in a different context. And that's why my stories here on the podcast are so relatable, because I'm able to understand something, even if I don't have direct experience of it, I'm able to understand an area or find an area of my life where I have done it and then connect with you on that level with a deeper level of understanding. So what happened was years and years ago, I used to work as a portrait artist. And so whenever the kids were young, I was always looking for ways to earn extra money. And my family are amazing artists. My grandfather was an architect, and he was an absolutely incredible artist and a pianist as well. And so he was an architect, he was a concert pianist, he played the organ in the cathedral here in Bangor in Northern Ireland. Absolutely amazingly talented guy. My mum is very, very musical. She is also an amazing artist, very talented. And so the art gene has really been passed down through the family. My son Kai has it as well. He's an incredible artist. So I was always extremely good at art. And so whenever I wanted to earn some money, I was like, well, I was always really, really good at art. So how can I, bet you I could probably do, portraits. So whenever, I think I started whenever Corey was born, or after Corey was born, I started practicing. I would just, take photographs of people's kids. I would get them printed out, and then I would, I was always really good in working in pencil. And so then I would copy the photograph onto, I would copy it or whatever by drawing from the pencil, and I would create these portraits. And it turned out I was really actually very good at it. So I started selling my art. I started, taking commissions for portraits. I didn't charge very much for them, but that's not the point of this story. Anyway, whenever then the kids were young and then Kai came along and I was still doing my art, but what I would do is I would employ a babysitter to come and look after the kids for, a couple of hours, maybe 3-4 hours in the afternoon, not every single afternoon, but whenever I could. And I would go, my mum lived very, very close to me and she worked at the time. So she was out at work. So I would go over to her house and I would sit in her kitchen and I would draw my portraits. That was my time whenever I would draw. And my mum at the time was really into self-help and into, angels and energy and all this kind of stuff. And she was listening at the time to Tony Robbins. She had bought Tony Robbins's one of his whole sequence of what at the time was actually, I think it was CDs at the time. And so she had a CD player in her kitchen. And so while I was drawing, I started listening to Tony Robbins just because it gave me something to do, something to focus on while I was drawing. And I really loved the Tony Robbins series. And I started, because at the time, obviously, I've always wanted to be successful. I've always wanted to be wealthy. I've always wanted to be rich. Money is an effect of being successful. I did always want to be rich, but I didn't want to be rich for the sake of being rich. I wanted to be successful in my own right, which then, of course, money would be an effect of that. And so I began listening to Tony Robbins, and in this one particular CD, Tony talked about one of the most important things that you can do. This was all about being successful, being a successful entrepreneur, I think, this whole series. And one of the things that Tony talked about was this thing he called, now in Belfast we call it the hour of power, because that's how we speak in Belfast, but I don't really say hour, I say hour, because people in America who listen to this podcast don't understand the word hour. So if you're from Belfast, Tony talked about his hour of power, but if you're anywhere else in the world and you don't understand the Belfast accent, it's the hour of power. So let's go with that. So Tony talked about his hour of power, and he said that, the first thing that you have to do in the morning is you have to wake up and you have to start your day with your hour of power, right? And he said the whole purpose of this is, to get up and to be motivated and to, clear your mind and to be purposeful. And, you do whatever it takes in this hour of power to motivate and energize yourself for the day. And he said, this is what I do every single day. I've done it for years. This is what motivated entrepreneurs do. And so I was like, yeah, right, I can do this. Yeah, okay. So this is what successful people do. They get up in the morning and they have this hour of power, right? And so I decided that I was going to start my hour of power. Now, I had 2 very young children. So Corey and Kai were born 17 months apart. Kai, I think, was, oh my goodness, I want to say he was 6 months old at the time. Not much older. I mean, if even 6 months, 4 to 6 months. And so, but he slept through the night very, very early on. I think he was only 11 weeks and he was sleeping like 7 to 7 on just breast milk. So my kids were always great sleepers. And so anyway, he wouldn't have woken up until maybe, 6:30 or 7 in the morning. And so I decided that I was going to get up every morning and I was going to go for my hour of power. But the only time I could do it to make sure that I was awake whenever the kids woke up, because God God forbid, Ryan would have to get up in the morning and actually tend to the children, because it was my job to tend to the children. And so I used to get up in the morning. I think I set my alarm for like 5, and I would get up at 5 and I would creep out of bed and I would put my clothes on and I would go out and I would walk the streets at 5 a.m. And I remember the first couple of mornings that I did this. Now, this was way before iPhones weren't even out at this stage. So we all had like Android phones, and nobody was, I think there was maybe like, what did you call those things that were out that people used to listen to music on? A thousand songs in your pocket. Steve Jobs called it. What the hell do you call it? An iPod, right? iPod. Who remembers iPods? You remember iPods? So anyway, I think iPods were out at the time. And so I maybe listened to an iPod or something, but it wasn't like, you people just go out for a walk now and you just set your phone and you listen to a podcast and off you go. It wasn't like that. So it was what I'm trying to say is it was a little more boring at 5 a.m. in the morning. And so I would get up at 5 a.m. and I would go out for a walk and I would be walking around the streets and I'd be like, yep, I'm here. I'm doing my hour of power. And I would pound around the street, pound the streets, and I wasn't running, but I was walking, and I would like breathe deeply, and I would try to feel purposeful, and I would stride, and I would look at the trees and the birds, and I would feel so grateful for being alive, and I kept waiting for this feeling that I was sure was going to come, because Tony Robbins, one of the most successful people in the world, told me that I should do an hour of power. And this is what successful people did, right? Every day they get up and they feel purposeful and they do their hour of power. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting to feel the feeling I was sure I was going to feel that was going to make me successful, because this was what successful people did. It was almost like I was waiting for some kind of divine inspiration to hit me like a lightning bolt. Like I would wake up one morning and suddenly I would be successful, or there would be like a big suitcase of cash at the end of the bed just to reward me for getting up to do my hour of power. That's kind of how I felt, right? So I'm getting up in the morning, doing my hour of power. But fuck me, it was really uncomfortable, right? I mean, my kids were young. I was busy cooking, cleaning, taking care of babies, breastfeeding, doing all the things that a young mum does. Ryan, as you all know, no fucking help whatsoever whenever the kids were young. And not only that, but Ryan was really not happy at being woken up at 5 a.m. when he didn't have to be. So, and Ryan's a light sleeper. So I would get up in the morning and I would try and creep out of bed as quietly as I could. And I would creep round to outside the door. But of course, Ryan, it was almost like he wanted to be woken up so he could be pissed off at me. Do you know what I mean by that? It was almost like he was waiting. He was a scratch looking for an itch, right? He was a scratch walking around, or sorry, no, the other way around. He was an itch, right? Looking for a scratch. It was like, come on, somebody scratch me. He was just waiting to be annoyed because he did not want to be woken up at 5 a.m. and he's very precious about his sleep. And so anyway, I would creep out of bed in the morning and I would walk around the streets, and I'm trying to be in my hour of power, right? I'm trying to feel the feeling you're supposed to feel in this hour of power that Tony Robbins told me was going to happen. And all I could think about was, oh my God, like Ryan is so annoyed with me. He's going to be annoyed whenever I get back. Like, rather than setting my day up for being successful, which is what Tony told me was going to happen, I was kind of setting my day up to kind of go wrong, because my husband was already pissed off with me. Ryan worked from home at the time. He had an office in the house. And so he was kind of home all day. So he was already pissed off with me at the start of the day. And then, God forbid, imagine one of the children woke up before I got back, which did happen sometimes. The children would wake up before I got back, and oh my God, that would just not be a good thing at all. Because whenever I got back, not only was Ryan pissed up at having, been woken up at 5 a.m, but now he's pissed off because he's standing in the kitchen holding a child, glaring at me as if like the world has come to an end because he had to parent his child for 20 minutes when the mother wasn't there. But you know what men are like, right? Men have these rules for how it should be. This is your job and I am doing your job and I did not agree to do your job. And what the fuck are you doing out walking the streets at 5 o'clock in the morning anyway, when your job is to be here at home parenting the children? Ryan couldn't understand, right, why I was getting up at 5 a.m. to go walk the streets. And in all honesty, per Ryan, he always gets the blame for everything. In all honesty, I couldn't understand why I was getting up and pounding the streets at 5 a.m. Okay? Because I was exhausted. I was worried the whole time that one of the kids were going to wake up. Ryan was pissed off with me. Life was tough enough, and I just seemed to be making it harder. But the point here is that with walking the streets in the morning, I didn't have something concrete that I was working towards, right? I just knew that I wanted to be successful and rich, but I didn't know at doing what. And I didn't really even know how to find my idea on how to be successful and rich. And I know that many of you struggle with this because I see you in my groups all the time and you're asking me, does this program help with finding the idea? Does this, is there anyone can help me with finding my idea? I really want to be successful and rich, but I don't know. I don't even have an idea of what I would do or what business I would create. Okay. So a lot of you are in this stage, and that's the stage I was in when I was going out doing my hour of power. I really didn't understand what the hour of power was for. I thought that doing the exercise would give me something that I was lacking or would make me successful. So I was doing it to get inspiration more than anything, not realizing that inspiration was not going to come from walking the streets of East Belfast at dawn. Do you see what I'm saying? It was like I was going for a feeling. It wasn't like I was already working towards something. And so getting up at that time in the morning was helping me be more successful towards my goal. My goal was just some far out vision, undefinable goal of I want to be successful and rich. It wasn't like I'm working towards this particular thing and therefore getting up in the morning is setting my day up so I can be more successful towards this particular thing. I thought that successful people got up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. and did their hour of power. And so if I wanted to be successful, this is what I had to do as well. And so pounding the streets at 5 a.m. was just causing me more anxiety and more upset in my marriage than it was moving me towards any particular goal. And not only that, it didn't even feel fucking good, right? I mean, it didn't feel good. It was horrible getting up at that time in the morning, especially with no purpose. A lot of people say to me, I get up at 4 a.m. a lot to work, and people say, how do you get up at 4 a.m.? I'm like, and I'm going to cover that in a wee minute, but you just do. When you've a reason to be up at 4, getting up at 4 is easy. When you've no reason to be getting up at 4, it's just torture. It's absolute torture. Why would you ever make yourself uncomfortable if you didn't know why you're making yourself uncomfortable? And this is where we're going with the podcast. So what did I do with the hour of power? Well, I stopped. I don't even know how long I did it for, but I really don't think it was that long. I mean, I want to say a matter of weeks, maybe. Weeks. I mean, I would love to say months because it makes me feel better about myself as a human being, but I'm genuinely not convinced it was months. I think it was probably weeks. And so I stopped. And I stopped because the thing that I was going for didn't come quickly enough to justify the pain of doing it. And I also wasn't clear on my reasons of why I was doing it. I wasn't going after a longer term goal. I was actually chasing a feeling. I was hoping that the hour of power was going to make me feel a certain way. So what do I mean by that? Well, another chapter, should I say, from my Tony Robbins time, whenever I used to sit in my mum's and listen to these podcasts or listen to these CDs, was a time when I went on a juice fast. Okay. I've only ever done one juice fast in my entire life. And you know why? Because I like food far too much to not eat it. So what happened was Tony Robbins also said that what successful people did was once a year, successful people went on a juice fast. And he really sold this to me, right? He really sold this idea to me that going on a green juice fast was so good for you because it alkalized the body. So Tony's whole goal, by the way, with this CD series, I now see as a successful person, was to help you have more energy and feel more productive and feel more, whatever. Because the more energy you have, the more productive you feel, the stronger you are, all of those things, the more likely you are to be in a good state to be able to do the things in your life that are hard that you have to do. But you kind of have to have something that you're working towards. Tony's series didn't give you something to work towards. It helped you to be a stronger, more purposeful, healthier human being to go after that thing you were working towards better. But of course I didn't understand this. And so Tony said that successful people go on juice fasts. So I was like, I was really into this because I'm really into health and fitness. I always have been. And so I'm listening to Tony talk about this juice fast, and he's talking about how incredible it is to juice fast. And he's saying about, when you juice fast, especially if it's a green juice, then, you give your body a chance to clear out. Your body goes into a deep clean mode, basically, because whenever you're not digesting food, and this is true, by the way, whenever you're not digesting food, whenever your body isn't putting a lot of energy into digesting food and you're only putting clean green juice into your body, your body doesn't have to do any extra work. So it puts all of its energy into doing a deep clean of your body. And it basically cleans out your digestive system. It gives your liver an overhaul, your kidneys an overhaul, your cells an overhaul. Your body starts to clear plaque out of your arteries because it's not trying to deal with the toxins and the shit that you're putting into your body on a daily basis. It has a really, really good chance to do a deep clean. And so Tony was saying about how amazing you feel on a juice fast. I've since realized he is a fucking liar, okay? It's like people who tell you that having children is a wonderful experience. Like no one ever tells you how bad birth is, right? Because you know why? Because after you give birth, your body releases a whole pile of oxytocin, which is the love hormone. And you forget the horrors of the labor that you just went through. And as time goes on, you forget it more and more and more. And so whenever people say, how was the birth? You say, it was hard, but it was fine. But that's only because oxytocin has made you forget the horrors of birth, because birth is not fine. Birth is really one of the most not fine things you will ever do in your entire life. So I think Tony had just forgotten how hard juice fasting actually was, because I'm listening to Tony talk about juice fasting. And again, this is what successful people do, right? Successful people juice fast, and they do it at least once, but usually 2 to 3 times a year. So I was like, well, I'm going to do a juice fast because Tony says this is what successful people do. So I started my juice fast on a Monday, and he was like, you have to make sure you get everything prepared and blah, blah, blah. And of course I did zero research on it. I was just like, okay, juice it is. Juice for breakfast, juice for lunch, juice for dinner. Now, whenever you're on a juice fast, you're actually supposed to drink juice like 7 to 8 times a day. It's not just once. You have to juice like continually because, you have to keep giving your body the nutrients. So anyway, I got up in the morning on the Monday and I was like, juice fast it is. And I remember my parents-in-law were staying with me from Australia at the time. And I was like, get up in the morning and I had my juice. And I felt very purposeful and very successful having my green juice in the morning. Came to about 10 o'clock and I'm like, I really want a cup of coffee. But coffee is not on the menu whenever you're doing a juice fast. So I'm like, no, stay strong. So it comes to lunch and I'm like, yay, another pint of juice. So another pint of juice at lunchtime. Now by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I was absolutely fucking miserable. I was starving. I had the emotional energy running around after young kids. My mother-in-law's making cups of coffee and having cream buns. And I'm like sobbing on the inside, but externally like, no, I'm fine. Nope, totally fine. Yep, purposeful on this juice fast. Yep, juice fast, really great, enjoying it. It's wonderful. Kim comes to dinner. Kim has her other pint of green juice or whatever it was I'm having. Delicious green juice. Like, I'm so happy doing this. And then I'm not sure whether I had another one for dinner or not, but in the evening, it came to bedtime and literally my stomach is cramping and growling. And now I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to sleep when I'm hungry? Because I can't sleep when I'm hungry. I don't know about you guys, but honestly, I have to eat most nights before I go to bed. I usually have a couple of pieces of toast before I go to bed because I cannot go to bed hungry. If I go to bed hungry, I just don't sleep. So I'm like starting to suffer a little bit, feeling a bit miserable on the inside. How am I going to sleep? Like, I'm so hungry. So anyway, I go to bed and I do manage to get to sleep and I'm feeling quite miserable. And I wake up on a Tuesday morning and I don't know about you, but like coffee for me is the elixir of life. My husband wakes me up every morning, anytime between 6 and 7, with a steaming cup of coffee, steamed oat milk with 3 shots of espresso, 3 shots, yes, of espresso with some steamed oat milk on the top and a little sprinkle of chocolate. And anyway, that's what I have first thing in the morning. And I woke up on the Tuesday morning. I was like miserable. Like, oh my God, I am just like, this is not fun. So I get up in the morning anyway. I'm like, no, you've said you're going to do this. And now I'm suffering for world audience, right? Now I'm like, well, I've told everybody I'm going to do this. So I can't just stop, right? So having a pint of green juice in the morning, comes to lunchtime, have a pint of green juice for lunch. And then I think to myself, I was going to go to yoga that night. I had just started Ashtanga yoga. Actually, I think I had 3 kids at this time. I did because I didn't start Ashtanga until after Maya was born. So I have 3 young kids and running around after them all day. I am feeling pretty shitty anyway because, I'm tired and I have 3 young kids and the emotional energy that takes to look after them. And I have my parents-in-law staying with me from Australia. So yeah, you can imagine life's pretty tough anyway. And I had my pint of green juice for lunch. And then I decided to make a big, I was vegetarian at the time. I wasn't vegan, but I decided to make a big vegetarian shepherd's pie for dinner. And I make a really fucking great shepherd's pie. Let me tell you, I'm a great cook. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm a really, really good cook. And so I made shepherd's pie for dinner, and this shepherd's pie is bubbling in the oven. cheese bubbling on the top. I put leeks, sauteed buttered leeks in the mashed potato. I put the peas in the mashed potato, right? So for those of you who like to cook, wee tip for you. Saute some leeks, slice them up and cook them in butter. Now it's vegan butter I use, obviously. And then mix them through your mashed potato with peas. Put the peas in the mashed potato, right? It's amazing. And so anyway, this shepherd's pie is bubbling away in the oven. The smell is permeating the house. I'm absolutely fucking starving. And I serve everyone dinner. Serve the kids shepherd's pie. Serve the family shepherd's pie. Sit down with my green juice. And I'm looking at the shepherd's pie, and the urge to eat the shepherd's pie becomes so overwhelming that I just say, fuck it. And I go over to the aga or the stove, and I spoon myself out a big, massive, stomach filling portion of shepherd's pie. And I sit down at the table and I eat every goddamn last bite. And afterwards, I felt like shit. I'm like, and then I went to yoga, like with a massively full stomach. I did. So I didn't even, after I'd finished it, it was delicious. It filled a hole. My stomach felt better. I definitely felt better, but I really, really felt like I had let myself down. Really felt like I let myself down. And anyway, I woke up the next morning and I just went back to living life normally. I had my coffee, had my food, but I just couldn't get over this feeling that I had let myself down, or this feeling, this negative feeling that I had hanging over my head. I was really like, why? I am a very strong person. Like I can really I can endure a lot in my life. Why can I not do a juice fast? Why could I last no longer than a day and a half, effectively, like all of Monday and to Tuesday at 6 p.m. That's all I lasted in this juice fast. It was supposed to be 5 days. Why could I not get to the end of the 5 days? Why did I let myself down? Now, at the time I was working with a coach in America. I've been working with a coach in America, different coaches over the years for 20 years now, or 18 years, 19 years, whatever, nearly 20 years. And I met with my coach that week, and I said to her, I just can't shake this feeling, this guilty feeling where I just want to beat myself up for the fact that I could not stick to this juice fast. And she helped me unpack it, right? And I really looked at it, and here's what I realized. I realized that I wasn't doing the juice fast for long-term benefits. I wasn't doing it for, because it was going to, I wasn't doing it as an experiment to see how energetic I would feel at the end of it. I wasn't doing it for any, health reasons, as in like I wasn't suffering from allergies or, anything debilitating that was making my life hard that I wanted to try and overcome. I had decided to embark on the juice fast because I wanted to feel a certain way. I wanted to feel the way successful people feel. I wanted to do what successful people do. I was going after a feeling. And the problem with going after a feeling is that whenever the feeling, whenever you don't get what you're going for, in fact, and whenever what you're doing actually makes you feel worse than you felt before, you don't have a reason to keep going. Your reason to endure the hardship has to be stronger than the hardship itself. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? Like whenever you decide to do something that's super hard, your reason for doing it has to be greater than the feeling of hardship you will endure doing it. Otherwise, you will just give up. Your why has to be so clear that you will literally do anything you have to do to make it happen. If your why isn't strong, palpable, and tangible, which basically means you have to be able to see it, feel it, experience it, try it on, hypothesize it, like really hold it in your heart and in your head, you will just give up the minute it becomes uncomfortable. And it's not that you're not strong, and it's not that you're not capable enough to endure. It's that your why has to be strong enough. And my why wasn't strong enough. Like my why, I wanted to feel a certain way. I wanted to feel what successful people feel. And I thought, Tony Robbins told me that successful people do this all the time and that it makes you feel amazing. So I wanted to feel amazing. And when I did the juice fast, I did not feel amazing. I felt like shit. I felt hungry and I felt grouchy and I felt headachy. So the reason I was doing it was to feel amazing, and I didn't get what I was going for. So of course I was never going to keep going. Does that make sense? So my reason for doing it wasn't strong enough. And I guess the reason, or one of the best ways I can help you understand this, is that mothers know this. So any of you listening to this who have children, you will know what it's like to nurse a newborn baby. And over in America, nursing means breastfeeding, but over here, nursing just means holding and loving and caring for. So anyone who's ever had a newborn will know the hardship that you endure, the pain, the sleepless nights, the painful vagina if you have a vaginal birth, the pain of a cesarean if you have a cesarean, the cracked nipples if you breastfeed, the giving of your emotional and physical self to another being. We endure an enormous amount of pain. And if your baby has colic or reflux, or God forbid your baby was born with some kind of defect and needs to go into hospital for treatment, or needs to have an operation or something, you endure any hardship that you need to endure to take care of your baby. You walk the floors in the middle of the night when you're not sure if your legs will hold you up anymore. I used to feed my babies in the middle of the night, and I breastfed and they slept beside me. So I used to just turn onto my side and feed them. And so you dozed on and off while they were feeding. But I always made sure that I woke up to wind them, to burp them properly, because if you didn't, you spent the rest of the night with them grunting with the burping. And so I used to commit to myself, as soon as they finish, I'm going to pick them up, I'm going to burp them, because that's going to help me get back to sleep quicker. And so I used to, and I used to pick them up and roll onto my knees and put them up on my shoulder. And I used to rock on the bed. I'll never forget it, like rock back and forth on the bed, just like patting their back, rocking back and forth. And if you put them down like a spirit level and then you lift them back up again onto your shoulders, so I used to lean right forward so they were flat, and then bring them up, because like a spirit level, it brings the wind to the top. And I used to do that. And I used to just endure until they burped, and burped a couple of times. And then I would lie them down. I slept all my babies on their tummies. I would lie them down on their tummy beside me. They could always bring up the rest of their wind on their tummy, and I would go back to sleep. But I remember at times, like literally kneeling back and forth on the bed going, I am stronger than this. I am stronger than this. I can do this. I can do this. I remember the first night after Jack was born, all my babies were born at home. So I just popped them out, no gas and air or anything, which meant they were always hungry little bastards as soon as they were born. There was no sleepiness from the epidural or from cesareans. And so they were just hungry. And the first night Jack was born, I remember just crying, because he was born, I think at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. And I remember on the Saturday night, the Friday night, sorry. So he was born at 1 o'clock Friday morning. So then he had all Friday day, and then that Friday night we went to bed, and he just sucked all night, because he was starving. He was like over 9 pounds. He was 9 pounds 2, I think. Or 9.6, he was 9.6, and he just fed all night. And I genuinely was in tears, because my nipples were so sore. I was so exhausted. He wouldn't stop feeding. I felt so guilty. Like if I had a bottle of formula in the house, and I wasn't adverse to giving them formula, by the way, I give it to them all the time. But if I didn't have any formula in the house, but if I had have, let me fucking tell you, I would have given him a bottle of formula. I cursed myself for not having formula in the house so that I could just give him some, because he was so starving. Now, the only good thing is my milk came in the next day. With all my babies, that happened. Like he was born on the Friday, my milk came in on the Saturday. So I had loads of milk for him then, he was fine. But that first night, I remember remember crying. And I remember going into Ryan, he was sleeping in the other room, holding him and saying, Ryan, I cannot get this baby to settle. I can't get this baby to settle. And he was like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? He said, do you want me to go out to the 24-hour Tesco and get some formula? And I was like, no, it's okay. It's okay. I'll endure it. Even just him understanding made me feel better. But I remember just thinking, Kim, you can get through this. 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 Because what was the other option? Like, I could have put Jack in another room, right? I just let him cry and just gone back to bed and said, fuck you, and just left him there. But I was never going to do it. Why was I never going to do it? Because this was my newborn baby, and taking care of him was more important in that moment than my personal comfort. So we can do this as human beings. We can do this as mothers. We can put our personal comfort aside for a higher value. We do it every single day. Like you see it when people are taking care of others in palliative care. You know, these nurses go in and they take care of these dying people every single day. Jordan Peterson says that life is suffering contaminated by malevolence. And it's true. It is suffering. And he says, what do you do with your kids? You don't take away their suffering. You teach them to endure. You teach them to endure hardship, because life is suffering every single day. It's hard. Life is hard. It's not meant to be easy. But we endure and we push through because the reason to continue is greater than our comfort in the moment. People who take care of elderly relatives. I watched my dad take care of my grandmother when she was really, really ill. He lived beside her. He took care of her breakfast, lunch and dinner. He took her to the toilet. He didn't want to take his mother, his 96-year-old mother, 98-year-old mother she was at the time, to the bathroom. He didn't want to have to wipe her butt, but he did. And he did the hard thing because he cared for his mother and he loved her. So whenever something is important enough to you, we will push through. And I didn't push through in the juice fast because my reason to continue wasn't strong enough. And so I had all these reasons. Oh, I was hungry. Oh, I didn't feel good. Oh, I'm whatever. And I told myself I'm not a strong person, and I can't even follow through on my goals. And I was questioning. I was like, I'm such a strong person. Why can I not do this? Well, the reason you couldn't do it, Kim, is because your why wasn't strong enough. My why wasn't strong enough. That's the bottom line. I didn't know why I was doing the juice fast. I was doing it because I wanted to feel a certain way. I wasn't clear on my reasons. And so then what happened was, when I finally became successful, it was a few years later. I had been trying and failing to start a business online after Jack was born. And I actually was moderately successful. I built a mailing list of like 30,000 people, which was a lot at the time. And I had started a business called the Work at Home Mums Network. It never made really very much money, but made a little bit of money, but really not a lot. And I didn't know really anything about marketing, and I didn't have a sales funnel in place. And I wasn't pushing it forward really the way I needed to push it forward in order to be successful. But I had always practiced yoga, and I decided that I was going to teach yoga instead. And I started teaching yoga privately at home. And then I'm just a person who thinks bigger. I always have. I was teaching privately at home. And then I had this idea of, what if I decided to run workshops? And I thought, well, I could run workshops and I could earn some extra money. And, and I thought, well, let's do that. So I came up with the idea for these De-Yoga Talks workshops. At the time, it was called the Ultimate Yoga Detox. It became De-Yoga Talks at a later time. So the Ultimate Yoga Detox is what I called it. And I decided to run these yoga detox workshops. And so I remember I booked the local yoga studio I hired it out for my first workshop. And it was only a 2-hour workshop, and I meticulously planned the workshop. I planned the moves, I planned the workout, I planned the music, I planned everything. I planned it to an inch of its life because I'm that kind of person. And I remember at the time I had a friend who was very successful, who had a very successful company, and she used to come to me for private yoga. And I remember her saying to me, well, how much do you want to earn from the workshop? And I said, well, I think I can fit in 40 people. If I charge them £30 each, that's, £1,200 plus, whatever costs I have, I think I can probably clear about £1,000 profit. And she said, well, why don't you think bigger than that? And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, how much would you love to earn from the workshop? And I was like, well, I would really love to earn about £4,000. She said, right, well, why don't we figure out how you can earn that? And I was like, really? She said, yeah. She said, so she helped me to see that she said, you can sell the workshop. She said, but then at the end of the workshop, you can sell programs. You can sell 3 different levels of programs. She said, if you could, now this was only about a month before the workshop, or 3 weeks or something, 2 weeks maybe before the workshop was due to run. She said, why don't you create some kind of online 30-day program that you can sell? And you can sell the online 30-day program for, say $47, I think I was charging at the time. Or she said, and then you can create like a mid-level program where people not only get access to that program, but they get extra coaching. They get like a different private Facebook group where you're going to be doing, you'll coach them on a higher level for 30 days. And then you can create a higher level program, which you can make super exclusive and say it's only, you've only got 3 spots available, and it could be $500. And, and that way then, she gave me this idea, and I sat down and I thought, oh my God, right. Okay. I could actually do this. So I created this, super special program where people came to the house, for 3 people. They would come to the house and they would spend the whole day. We would do a yoga practice in the morning. Then I would go through at lunchtime all the supplements I use, all the, the protein powders and how I eat, and because I was a vegan at the time. And so I really broke down all of the things that they would need in order to have a very successful detox. And then we did another yoga practice in the afternoon, and I did a really beautiful shavasana with them and with different massage and things. And I charged $500 for that, for that day. And then I created a mid-level program and I created a lower level program. Now, the thing is, once I created the ideas for these programs, I realized I only had 2 weeks to actually create them. And I said to Julianne at the time, I was like, how am I going to create this? And she said, you deliver it inside a private Facebook group. You just upload the content into the files section of the private Facebook group. And you don't even have to have anything more than week 1 created, because you can release week 2, week 3, week 4 as you go. You can create the content as you go. And I was like, right, okay, that's a really good idea. So all I need to do is have week 1 created. She said, yeah, you just type it all up. You PDF it. You don't even need it designed, and then you upload the videos, you record the videos, upload them to the group, and then you release the videos on different days. I was like, amazing, okay, love this. So the yoga workshop was going to be, I think the first one was going to be maybe in September, so this might have been about 2 weeks beforehand. Well, I was like, I had 4 young kids at the time. This was, I think, 2014 maybe. And 2014, I think it was. And I had 4 young kids at the time. So Jack was maybe 3. He was born 2011. So he was maybe 3. It might have been 2013. He would have been 2 or 3. And so the rest of them would have been, I think, 7, 5, 3. And Jack would have been 2, maybe something like that. Or 8, 5, 4 and 2, whatever. They were young. I didn't have any time. I had no time, none whatsoever. So I was like, when the hell am I going to create this program? So I thought, okay, well, I can get up early and I can create it early in the morning. So I set my alarm for 3:45 a.m. and we all co-slept in a big bed, although Ryan didn't sleep with us every night. He didn't like all the burping and farting. And that was just me. No, so he would have slept actually in another room. So he slept in the spare room. I slept with the kids. We had this giant 18-foot bed. So getting up early and disturbing him wasn't so much of an issue anymore, because the kids were all just sleeping anyway. So I would have got up. I set my alarm for 3:45 a.m. and I got up at 3:45 a.m. and I worked. I think it was about 3 weeks actually I had to do it. And I went downstairs into the kitchen. I really quietly made myself a cup of chai, which is what I was drinking at the time. And I sat at the kitchen table and I worked solidly the kids woke up anywhere between 6:30 and 7. So from 4 a.m. till 6:30 or 7 a.m. And I worked solidly creating this program. I wrote all of the content. I couldn't record any videos. I had to do those at different times because obviously it was too early in the morning to record videos for the noise. But I wrote all the content. I created the Facebook group. I did everything that I needed to do, and I worked solidly from 4 a.m. until 6:30 or 7 a.m. or 7 a.m. Sorry. And I did not suffer once about getting up at 4:45. When my alarm went off at 4:45, yes, I was like, oh my God, I had a little moment of internal suffer. I am so tired. And then I remembered why I was doing it. I was doing it because I wanted to make £4,000 from this workshop. And so I got out of bed immediately and I went to the kitchen. I comforted myself with a really delicious cup of chai and I started to work. And I worked solidly every morning from 4 a.m. and I did it Monday to Saturday. I let myself have a lie-in on a Sunday and I worked solidly from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. and I created the most epic program, which has now become, over the years, we still sell it. It's called D-Yoga Talks. If you want to go check it out, you can look up dyogatalks.com. That's what it morphed into. It's obviously evolved into a much more complex program, but it's still there. It's still for sale. It was my first ever business and I taught the workshop. I never forget, I had to go to an Eckhart Tolle was coming to Belfast that night. So I taught my workshop that day and we were going to Eckhart Tolle that night. And I just kept falling asleep the whole time in the workshop, in Eckhart Tolle's concert that he was doing, or talk, because it was, I was exhausted, and two, his content makes you fall asleep because it hits on pain points that your body doesn't want to consider. So anyway, I kept falling asleep that night, but I went into my workshop and I made just over £4,000 in that workshop, because I got up in the morning at 4 a.m. and I worked my butt off. And then that became the Ultimate Yoga Detox. And that model became what I did for 2 years. I think it must have been 2013, for 2 years before I came on the idea of the Sculpted Vegan. The Yoga Talks workshops paid for the Sculpted Vegan to come into fruition, because when the workshops were so successful, I had to move them to the local gym, David Lloyd, and I actually ended up having 60 people per workshop. The mats were so close together. We had to lay the mats out for people because we couldn't let them lay them out for themselves because we wouldn't have enough space. I sold 60 spaces in that workshop twice a month. In the beginning, we only did them once a month, and then I started doing them twice a month because they were so popular. We had 120 people come through those workshops at £30 a piece. And then at the end of the workshop, I sold the Yoga Talks program. I didn't do any of the higher level stuff anymore. I just sold the basic program with access to the private Facebook group. I think I sold it for $47. I discounted it massively to $47, and I ended up making £4,000 a month. That's how much I made. And I worked 2 Sundays. £4,000 a month is what I ended up making from running 2 workshops. So that idea evolved into that. And that money, and I was also teaching privately at home. So I ended up I was earning about £400 a week, I think, teaching privately at home, but I had to pay childcare obviously for when I was working. And so I think I ended up, which is about £1,600. I ended up making about after I'd paid for childcare, about £5,000 a month. £5,000 a month is quite a lot whenever you're a stay-at-home mum. It was like £60,000 a year. So I was earning £5,000 a month, and I was able to use that money whenever the Sculpted Vegan idea came to me. I was able to use that money to build the company. I should have saved more of it, but I spent a lot of it, but I was able to use it for design, for Facebook ads, for, loads of different things. But also it just meant that I had my own money and I didn't have to go to Ryan all the time. But that isn't the point here. What the point is that I'm teaching with this story is that I was driven to get out of bed. When my alarm went off in the morning, I didn't even question getting up. I didn't even question doing the hard thing. When Ryan got annoyed, I didn't care. And the reason why I didn't question it, the reason why I did it, the reason why I did the hard thing is the same reason I parented my newborn baby and didn't just leave him in a room to cry, was because my why was greater than the hardship. My why was stronger than anything else at that moment. It was stronger than my tiredness. It was stronger than my comfort. It was stronger than my husband being annoyed at me. It was stronger than anything because I knew why I was doing it, and I had a very specific goal in mind for what I wanted, which was I wanted to make £4,000 from one workshop. I set the goal first, and then I looked at what I would need to do to achieve it. But the goal was so real for me. It was so tangible. It was something I wanted so much. I wanted to have my own income so much because I wanted to be free. I wanted to be free. I didn't want to have to ask Ryan for money every month. I didn't want to be accountable for my spending. I wanted to be able to spend whatever I wanted. I wanted to be able to buy clothes if I wanted, or buy things for the kids, and not have him say, well, how much did that cost? And how much did that cost? And you spent money on what? Because that's what husbands do whenever you are a stay-at-home mum and they control the finances. And there's nothing wrong with that because they're the one who's earning the money. And whenever I'm earning the money, I do ask Ryan now. Like I earn more money than Ryan now. And I will say to him, I never with annoyance, but I'm always like, you spent what on what? Or he'll say, I want to buy this or I want to buy that, or I want to buy a house is what he wanted to buy recently. And I was like, but like as an investment, I was like, so I question it. I go, how much is it? And do you really think that's a good investment? Do you think that's a good idea? And so I do to him what he used to do to me, because that's what you do. Now Ryan does still earn his own money, but I earn more. And so that's what you do when someone else is spending your money. You question it. So I'm not saying that's wrong, but I didn't want to have to be answerable to Ryan anymore. I wanted to earn my own money. And so my why was super, super, super strong. I wanted it so badly. I was willing to get up at 3:45 every morning and work. And so I guess the final point that I want to make here is if you find yourself being derailed, right? Derailed by the meal plan or the cardio or taking care of a relative, or you find yourself making excuses about not having the time. I hear this all the time. Oh, I just don't have the time. And honestly, I just laugh because I am literally the busiest person you've ever met in your life. Every single hour of my day from I wake up in the morning is scheduled. Every single hour of every single day. I quite often get up at 6 a.m. and come to the office and do some recording in the office, record masterclasses or record this podcast or whatever. And then I go back home and have my breakfast. Then I go to the gym. Then I come back to the office. So I have actually fit more in before midday than most people fit in their entire week. Well, not maybe their entire week, but like maybe a couple of days. You've no idea how much I get done in every single day because I make it, because I'm purposeful and I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So if you find yourself being derailed, it's usually because you haven't found your why yet. You haven't found the reason to make it happen. If you're complaining that you don't like eating the same thing every day and the food is boring, it's because your comfort in the moment is more important than your long-term goal. It's because you haven't really connected to your why. You haven't connected to your reason. You haven't connected to your long-term goal. Because whenever you're fully connected to what it is, and I mean specific, like at the end of 4 weeks, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. Like, make your goal big. You're like, see this 20 pounds that I haven't been able to lose? I'm going to lose it in 4 weeks. And then you go, okay, what do I need to do to make it happen? And you try on what it would be like to lose 20 pounds in 4 weeks. Like, imagine if I could guarantee that if you followed my plan, you could lose 20 pounds in 4 weeks. Would you be willing to do whatever it takes? Well, you would if losing the 20 pounds is important to you. If you were like, yes, Kim, it is super important to me. And what if I told you that if you followed my plan, I could make you $1 million in a month? Would you do it? What if I told you I could literally, if you followed my step-by-step plan, you couldn't fail to make $1 million in a month? Would you do it? Even if it involved 4 hours sleep a night for a month, would you do it? Of course you would do it. Absolutely you would do it, because you're like, yes, I would be willing to kill myself, literally, not kill myself, but figuratively, for 4 weeks, emotionally and physically, to have $1 million at the end of it. When your why is strong enough, you will do whatever it takes. So if you find yourself complaining about the meal plan, or complaining about the time, or complaining about the cardio, or complaining about the training, and you just don't have you just can't motivate yourself to get up and go to the gym or to do the workout, it's not because you're fat or lazy or unmotivated. It's just that you haven't connected to your why. And you haven't set yourself a goal that you can really feel and touch and connect with and believe in. And believe that is possible. Because when you have, let me tell you, you will do whatever it takes. You will do whatever it takes. And that really is at the crux of what I'm teaching here. And that's why we offer such big money in our fitness competitions, by the way. It's to give people a strong why. I mean, our Extreme Body Makeover program is finishing on the 10th of September. First prize is $100,000. $100,000. And all people had to do with to be in with the chance of that was to work hard for 6 months. I mean, the first prize is 100,000. Second prize is 50,000. You'd be happy if you won 50, wouldn't you? Third prize, I think, is 20, then 10, then 5, and then 6 to 10th get $1,000 each. So like $100,000. But the reason why we offer such big prize money is to make people's why strong enough, because most people just don't have a good enough reason. They want to lose 20 pounds, but they don't really want it enough. They want to look like a stage athlete, but they don't really want it enough, But then they can't understand why they can't stick to a fitness goal, and they think it means something about them, but it doesn't mean anything about them. If you have a rule that you should be thinner or stronger or more ripped or any of those things, right? It's just a case of I want it. I want it. You can't want it. You have to actually want it. And the problem is most people just can't find the why for themselves. And that's okay. That's okay if you can't find your why. Keep looking. Keep looking for your why. Or maybe just say, well, you know what? I've always wanted to lose this weight. And Kim has a plan. In fact, I do have a plan, right? If you have more than 10 to 20 pounds to lose, minimum of 10 pounds, even if you have less than 10 pounds, this program will work for you. Maybe it's like, I just can't shift the last 2 kilos. Well, this program will work for you. We have a program launching on the 8th of September called the 4-week shredded body program. And this program guarantees that if you follow it, you will lose. If you have 20 pounds to lose, that you will lose 20 pounds in 4 weeks. It guarantees it. The only way that you can fail is to not follow the program. And we have set everything up. We even have playlists for Netflix. We have created all of the top shows in the world and categorized them for you to choose to watch during your cardio. We've done the podcasts. We have created non-vegan meal plans, vegan meal plans, soy-free meal plans, gluten-free meal plans. We made them super simple and easy to follow with all brand new recipes that you've never seen before in the Sculpted Vegan. We have got coaching calls 5 days a week with my top coaches, me being one of them, me, Mark, Vanessa, Laura, and Dr. Rachel. 5 days a week coaching calls, once a week Q&As inside the group. We have every single thing. I can't even tell you what we've got. Like the bonuses alone are worth more than, I think, 11 grand. We calculated them at. And this is a no-fail program. So what if I told you that if you just showed up, invested in yourself and followed the program, you could lose 20 pounds? Would it be worth it? Well, it probably would. And you might find that eating the same food every single day might be endurable, because the promise at the end of achieving your goal is so tangible to you that you will do whatever it takes. You just have to be willing to do whatever it takes. And so my question is, are you? Are you willing to do whatever it takes? Do you have a strong enough why? Because if you don't, you have to find it. Because if you don't find it, you're never going to be successful. So just to finish, I want to remind you of something that you may have forgotten. And that is that you are not a failure as a human being. You are a smart, capable, wonderful, funny, talented, and worthy human being. You deserve to have everything in life that brings you joy. You deserve it. You just have to keep working until you find your thing. You have to keep searching. And I promise you that when you find it, the hard times will become the easiest thing you've ever done, because your why will be strong enough to endure. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to leave a review on this podcast, either on the website, the Sculpted Vegan website, or on Apple or somewhere. And I want you to tell me what your why is, because I read all the comments. I want you to tell me what your why is. Or I want you to go into the 5-day Fitness Mindset Motivation Challenge Facebook group. I want you to join that challenge. And I want you to tell me what your why is in that group. I want you to tell me why you're doing this. And if you can't find your why, we can help you find your why. But you have to find your why. Because it's not about the program. It's not about the meal plan. It's not about the cardio. It's not about the time. It's that you haven't found your why. Because when you find your why, you find your way. There. I just come up with something there. That should be a saying. When you find your why, you'll find your way. I think I'm going to call that. And that's what I'm going to call the podcast. Find your why to find your way. And I promise you, when you do, everything will become easy. I tried to keep this podcast under an hour, but I've just looked at the time and it's 1 hour and 2 minutes. Really sorry. I just like to talk. I just should maybe not talk so much, but I like that the podcasts are an hour, because I hate it whenever a podcast is like 20 minutes and you're like, fuck's sake, that wasn't long enough. I do like to, keep structure and discipline and consistency to these podcasts. So hopefully you have enjoyed this episode. I would love for you to tell me what you think of it. I know you all enjoy them because you tell me, but I love it whenever I see it in the groups. I love it when you post in the group and tell me what you loved about the podcast. And then everyone else jumps on and tells me what they love about it too. It makes me feel so good. And you know what? It helps me to strengthen my why for why I show up here every week and do it, because I can't record any more than one podcast at a time, because it takes, because of the way I teach, because it's like a lecture I do. It is tiring and it takes a lot of planning to do each episode. So whenever I hear from you guys what you got out of it and how much you enjoyed it and how worth it was, it keeps me going. So please share with me why you love this podcast so that you can help to cement my why. I am going to keep doing this because I know you guys love it and I love it too. But it really does to help strengthen my why. So please do share with me what you get out of it and why you love it, because it keeps me going too. Okay, guys, that's all for this week. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for listening. Please join the 5-day Fitness and Mindset Motivation Challenge. Help me let me help you find your why. Let me help you find your way. And thanks for listening. And I'll see you next week for another episode of the Kim Constable podcast. Hope you'll have an awesome week, and I'll speak to you all soon. Okay, take care now. Bye-bye.